Okay, welcome back to what is actually the final episode of this series of reading the Wheel of Time for the first time with Adison from Everyday Negroes. This has been a blast. I have thoroughly enjoyed seeing this story through Addison's eyes and his perspective of having watched the show first, and just his unique perspective as Adison. Like, he's a different person than me, and he has different thoughts. It has been so much fun. I am so grateful for all of you for joining us on this journey. And of course, special thanks to patrons of my channel, patrons of the Everyday Negroes channel. If you are a patron, you can go back and actually watch all of the episodes live when we were, well, not, you can't watch them live because we already recorded them, but you watch them unedited, the live streams that we did when we recorded. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this final episode. It is basically a debriefing, going over, our final thoughts on The Eye of the World and changes from book to show and all of that. Just enjoy this conversation where we basically just unpack all of our final thoughts on this. And yeah, let's get into it. Picking up kind of where we left off last time because my computer had a bit of a meltdown. It sort of did. I have gone through the video that we had, and some of it is salvageable, but we kind of just, I think I even asked you a question and then I couldn't talk anymore, so I never got to hear your answer to that question. Oh, look at that cup! Yeah. Look at that cup!
Oh yeah, I had to have a Wheel of Time cup today.
Nice, very nice, very nice. I'm seeing somebody in the chat saying, "What happened at the end of Eye of the World?" I'm not sure. Something about an escalator in the sky. Like, it's just, yeah. But we actually
escalator in the sky.
Yeah. We did actually end up getting to talk about the end of the Eye of the World. What we didn't really fully get to do is what I wanted to do for our final conversation is fully debrief on differences and changes in the show and your feelings. Now, I know you talked a lot about how you felt that it was really, really spoilery.
So everybody just unhear everything you heard at the end of the last video.
yeah. But you talked about how you felt that this was pretty spoilery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you want to ready to hop straight into my thoughts about that?
Yeah, fully.
Okay. Yeah. So as someone who watches the show and reacts to it and tries to get an authentic reaction and genuine reaction, there's certain things that I understand is difficult for it to do, such as I guess the biggest one is like Alida and them. Yeah. So once they appear in the show, it's like I'm already gonna kind of know who they are and what type of connection they may have to Rand and things of that nature. So it's not gonna be that same wow factor. It's like, oh snap, who is this character? How may they feel about Rand? Or that is what I mean by spoilery. Also, things such as seeing some of the Forsaken, the horn that you were telling me about,
the Horn of Valyr. Though that was in the show. That was in the show.
The Horn of Valyr. There's just other different things though, such as like the one guy who, again, we have this theory that nobody's dead until you actually see them die. And I know we talked last time about the fact that he got impaled in the show, and I was like, I feel like that's good enough for me to believe that he may no longer be with us. But seeing him in full dialogue at the end of the book lets me know, okay, he's most likely going to be all right, so to speak. So there's a long list of things, but those are the ones I would say as a reaction standpoint, it would not catch me off guard if I see some of the people there. But as a book reader and as somebody who is just deeply interested into the story, I feel like it gives me like a double dose of enjoyment, if that makes sense.
More depth of enjoyment. I was thinking about this after our conversation. Like, it's been a while. Like, this computer thing has made everything just slow down towards the end, which I do apologize because that's mostly on my tech end. But what I was thinking about is I think a way you can think of it to maybe relieve some of that anxiety of being like a fresh, no, because I also do reaction videos. I know what you're talking about, right? I know what you're talking about. Think of it like when you go see a Marvel movie or like a superhero movie. You know, you watch a Batman movie, you know the Joker's going to show up. What you don't know is what the Joker's going to do. Right, so
Okay.
like I actually don't know if all of these characters that you've met are in book one, the ones that weren't in the book or weren't in the show, will be in season two. Some of them I do because of casting. Some of them I don't
Yeah.
know. But like if Elida is in season two, and legitimately I have no idea. Like I have no idea if she's going to be in the next season, because I don't know about cat. Like I can't tell you that. And the books and the show, as you've seen,
Is this a protective Jenny answer, or is this a genuine Jenny
this
answer?
is a genuine Jenny answer. Like people in the chat can confirm, there has been no casting announcement about.
Okay.
So I don't know, and they can change things however they want. But like if she shows up, what you don't know yet is who she's going to be or what she's going to do. And so,
Got you.
like it doesn't necessarily spoil a Batman movie to know that the Joker's going to be in it, because Joker's going to be in it. Like that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's just I don't know. Just thinking about that, as it can sort of you're not as spoiled as you think you are. You think you are. I think.
Got you.
Yeah.
No. So to answer that, I would say I agree. I just wonder, like, as I continue to look at the next books, like the more and more ahead of the show they get, at some point I feel like I'll be a whole a season ahead of with knowledge, just based on the way that this one book was.
Yeah, nobody would do that to you. Like people love your reactions, they love your theorizing and guessing. So I don't think anybody would do that to you.
I think to further talk about your point, I think Shanice says we don't even know when season 2 is coming out.
Yeah, like we don't know. There's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we don't know. So,
so the next one is David Nance said, if I saw Adison reading ahead of the show, I'd drive to Tennessee to slap the book out of his hand.
I'm pretty sure everybody
Hey, David, that's what a good friend is for, right there, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So, okay. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, just in the like debriefing, is your thoughts on some of the changes. Like we did talk about some of the things that they left out. Like I know you still feel like the Green Man is a big miss. Yeah. Are there any other things like that you aren't sure why the show left out that you really missed now that you've read the book? Sure. Yeah.
For sure. So the Green Man, sorry if I'm reiterating something you just said. The Green Man for sure. Then also the prison, or not the prison, but the basement scene with the the Thin Keeper.
The Thin Keeper.
Where Rand
had
the little interaction where he had the lightning strike, and so that was a big one. I also would have loved to have seen the whole boat ride.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
that would have been dope, just to kind of give us some new scenery, give us a new environment. And then also it would have been also neat for sure to see the interaction with a lot of more gays, all the queen in the Queen's court. The biggest one, I believe, in my opinion, that I would have loved to have seen was the fight with Lan and the Fade, and him beheading the Fade.
Beheading the Fade.
That would have been dope.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my fear is if I would have saw Lan defeat that Fade like that, my fear for the Fade would not be as big going into the next season.
Yeah, I think that they are trying to do a power creep in the show, where it's like, you don't show them being that tough in the first season so that you can see them grow. I think that's what they're trying to go for. For me, the one that I miss, just because it was the one I would have bet money that it would have been in the show, was that Raven scene with the Ravens chasing Perrin and Egwene.
Oh, chasing the
yeah,
and devouring the fox. The fox was
with the fox. Yeah,
like that would have been a neat one to see. That definitely would have been a neat one to see for sure.
Yeah, because that scene is just so like it's like that's one of those scenes that gives me chills and makes me feel like I feel terror during that scene more than some of the others. I think partially for me, it's because fight scene, I don't visualize things very well. So like when they're fighting, literally my brain is just like fighty, now who won? Like that's that's what's happening in my brain. So I don't know.
For sure.
How about going the other way? What about some of the stuff they've added to the story from the show? Like well, Tarvalon, for example, or that storyline with Stepan, the warder. What do you think about some of the stuff
Yeah.
they added? Nynaeve exploding and becoming the one. Like that's not in book one at all.
Yes. Yeah. So the additions,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the addition to Step in the Water and having him lose, his Aes Sedai counterpart, I feel like that actually helped as a first time reader or viewer of the series to understand how deep that connection is and how hard it is for the two to maybe disassociate, or once one
Mm,
of them is lost, for them to kind of move on from that.
mm,
So I feel like that did help. But at the same time, I would have traded it for about any of the 5 to 10 items that we just listed previously. Now, the other thing was Nynaeve going supernova.
mm.
That's a hard one. I love to see it. Like, that was probably one of my favorite
Episodes,
parts,
yeah.
episodes / scenes
Mm.
of the series. I don't know. Maybe they did that just to kind of set the standard for, again, this is my speculation. If she does something even bigger
Mm.
moving forward, we kind of know that we only seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her power. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, it's interesting that because the Steppen episode, I when it happened, I didn't like it. Like that was one of the episodes that I was just like,
Mm.
oh, come on, I don't want to spend time with this character because you've read book one, he's not in book one. I was like, I literally when they introduced him, in my brain went, oh, he's gonna die. Like, why else would you introduce a character who's not even in the book? So I
Oh,
wasn't.
so he wasn't even in the book at all, though.
Well,
So
he's not
his.
in book one. Like that's like he
Oh, okay.
yeah. So that was my thought. Like that's so I didn't get invested in his character at all. Like
Yeah.
I just didn't. And then after the episode aired and I like watched, it was again watching your reactions and the
Yeah, yeah,
reactions of
yeah.
other people who hadn't read the book going, "Oh, that explains this." It's like, "Oh yeah. Okay, I see what the purpose of this episode was. It was to explain something that you kind of do need to know, and it does get explained a little bit in book one, and more information about that bond may or may not, but probably does come in later books, but you don't know
Yeah.
quite what that is. So
Also, I guess
yeah,
also speaking of Bond, the other one was meeting. Dang, I don't. Sister Strong Josh, right? You
yeah,
know what I'm
yeah, yeah.
saying?
Sister Strong Jaws,
Dang, I done said that name. What is her actual name? What?
Leandrin,
Leandrin. There we go.
yeah,
Leandrin.
Leandrin.
Leandrin, and the whole, what is it, pantheon of other Aes Sedai
Yep,
that were in
yep,
there.
yep.
So that entire interaction with them, we did not see
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Yeah, Sister
And
Most Tatted,
Sister Most
the
Tatted.
Amelin seat. Yeah.
So and then also seeing her and how Moraine interacted.
Mm,
Obviously, we never saw that in book one, and it
yeah.
also makes me curious to see if that'll actually be a type of relationship they had. Because aside from me understanding the connection between Aes Sedai and Water, a big part of me was
Mm.
thinking like Lan and Moraine have something for each other prior to then seeing
Right
Nynaeve and
before
Lan
that. Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
connect.
Yeah, that is like I think I told you before. I read Eye of the World not knowing that it was the beginning of a series, and so the entire book, Moraine's like, "We got to get to Tarvalon. We got to get to Tarvalon. We got to get to Tarvalon," and then the book ends and they don't get there. I was so frustrated. Like I was like, "Come on, we spent the entire book trying to get to this one location." And
Yeah,
then the book
yeah, yeah,
ends,
yeah.
and they don't even get to the city that they've been talking about this entire book. And I was like, it drove me a little bit crazy. So watching season one, was like, oh, okay, you get to
Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah,
see the city because
yeah. For
you
sure.
yeah, it was a bit of a relief to me. Why, like, just your thoughts? Why would you think that they would introduce that stuff, like about Tarvalon and these characters?
My thought process is after reading the book, maybe they just wanted to show us the city and all of its glory,
Mm,
because I could see that being something that the Dark Ones want to just go ahead and tear into, like, and
right,
destroy and
right.
utterly destroy. So that's just one of my theories. Like, we get the opportunity to see it good and in all of its glory,
Mm.
because it may be something that gets destroyed later on in the aftermath of whatever battles or whoever switches power. So that was one of my thoughts about it.
One of the other, and it was so. Before I go on to the next thing that I wanted to ask you, is there
Mhm.
any other scenes that you think that were added that you don't know why, or that you liked, that you think were a good addition, or that
Oh
you
yeah,
think
yeah,
were a
yeah.
bad addition?
For sure, another huge one. Wolf brother's name is,
Perrin?
go ahead and tell, not parent, not parent.
Oh, Elias.
Elias. That one I didn't understand either. I don't know why they didn't, but we've talked about this in previous
Mm,
chapters.
mm.
I feel like they wanted to mask who Perrin was and the
Yeah,
fact that he
yeah.
could potentially be the dragon a little bit more. But Elias was another one. I feel like that whole journey, and we talked a lot about throughout the course of this book, is there's so much traveling that obviously we're not going to see
Yeah, yeah,
every single traveling interaction. But I feel like that particular travel encounter was a huge one.
yeah. Mm.
And in my mind, there's no way that we're not going to not see Elias again.
Okay,
Is
okay.
what I feel like. Even after the encounter they had with the white cloaks in the forest, I feel
Right.
like Elias is safe somewhere.
Okay. Oh, you like in the books? Like I thought you were talking about the show. In the books, you think
No,
he's gonna show up again?
oh for sure. I think he'll show up again in the books and he'll show up in the series.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but
It's,
yep.
yeah, it's possible. I do think, like in my opinion, Perrin's story of all of the characters' story got the most shortchanged in the show. Like he got.
Okay.
I think what they did with him in the first episode with his wife dying. They couldn't really like that is. I mean, just it's a horrifying thing that happened in that first episode.
Yeah.
That even just like taking that into reality, that would stop you for a while, like stop you from
Yeah.
having any development just in your life. Everything in your life would stop. So it makes sense story wise that you don't really get to know him very much because all you know about him is this poor man. Like, oh, this poor
For
man,
sure.
this poor man.
For sure.
So, but
No, I completely agree.
yeah. So you don't like of all of the characters, you don't get to know him as much. But as you pointed out, and this is something I didn't think about, because they gave him such a horrifying trauma, it
Yeah.
makes you like him, even though you don't know
For
him
sure.
very much. You
For
care
sure.
about him. So.
Speaking of care about, I found myself caring about Tom even more too. Because in the show, obviously, our first interaction with him is picking Matt in them's
Yeah.
pocket. Whereas our first interaction with him in a book is somebody who is kind of taking the guys under his wing, which is a whole nother level of appreciation for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as people I'm rooting for, definitely. I mean, all three of the guys. Matt, part of me is just like, man, stop being so doggone hard. but,
Yeah.
but I'm still rooting for him, man.
Yeah. Oh man, if we ever do the meme review, I've seen some memes about Matt that I'm curious to see your thoughts on because yeah, Matt is Matt. He has some issues.
Oh,
Our poor
man.
Matt. um, but okay, one of the other things I guess I wanted to talk about, I saw in the comments. I can't remember if it was in the comments on my video or your video,
Yep.
but some people feel like I strawmanned the arguments for people who don't like the show. Some people feel like I just said, "Oh, they're all just racists and misogynists and blah blah blah," and I will just say if you didn't have an issue, like I'm talking to the audience, right? If you didn't have a problem with the fact that there were non-white people in the show, I'm not talking about you. Like that's I wasn't talking about you if that wasn't your issue with it. But another issue that people had, and you kind of actually alluded to this a little bit in your talk about the final season or the final episode,
Okay.
how Rand doesn't really get credit, and like the big battle scene is the
Yeah.
women with their channeling and whatnot. That is a change that happened from the book to the show. Like in the book, pretty much the big victory is Rand. Like everybody else tries, everybody else gets bodied completely. Rand does it on
Yeah.
his own. Whereas in the show, the girls do the big lightning battle, and Rand battles the
Yeah.
dark one, and Moraine. Well, Moraine, something happens to Moraine. So
Yeah.
that is a difference. And some people feel that was a theme through the show, that a
Yeah.
lot of the men's power was taken more than the books. Like a lot of the men had their power taken by the women.
For sure. So just to be completely honest about that, my first impression is like, let's just stop before we even talk. Let's stop the thoughts about the reading. I'm just gonna speak about the show.
Yeah.
My first thoughts about the show in general was like, why are the men so weak. You know what I'm saying? Why are they just kind of so honestly, my first thoughts were like, why are they doing the guys like this? It's cool to see all the power that some of the women have and how they have it together. But then after reading the book too, and then seeing that it does seem like the men got slighted even more in the show. Even going back to what you just said, like at the end of the day, like Rand saved pretty much the whole world, and that just gets completely kind of disregarded in book one. I understand why Moraine is kind of like maybe passive, or what do you call passive aggressive, or just not necessarily answering his questions, maybe because she's trying to get a feel for him, and she also realizes, indicated at the end of the book, that like I actually can't help you the way that you need to be helped. It don't have to come from somebody else. So I kind of understand her approach. But from the guy's standpoint, even seeing like we talked about the whole group of women at the Aes Sedai meeting together, no guys really, even seeing the guys kind of as warders, which it's like it is a little awkward. Like it's neat, but it's interesting. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah. Now, like that, I mean, the Aes Sedai are all women, and there are warders. That is like that's fully from the book. Like there's nothing out that.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I said. And speaking from my initial thoughts about the show, but it is. But at the same time, I do see what you mean. Like people in the comments, it doesn't make me like take this cup and want to throw it across the room. It's just like, okay, it's cool seeing somebody else's perspective about how a world could be built. So
yeah, I do want, like, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I think a lot of people, when it happens not just with women and men, it happens with any people of color versus white people, or queer versus straight people, anything that is not white men and heterosexual people, assume that there is a political agenda involved. And I think in this case, what happened was they were trying to simplify it. Because that battle at the end with Rand up in the sky, and he's fighting the Dark One, and somehow the battle with the Trollocs, he's somehow doing that at the same time. I think they just split it up. And Rand is the dragon, so he has to fight the Dark One. Like, you can't have anybody, like, that's the most important battle. Frustratingly, though, that the most important battle is not visually impressive, whereas the women's battle is actually much less important, but it's more visually impressive. So I think people assume that there's a political reason, and I don't think that that's the case. I think it was just them going, nobody's going to understand it. If we have Rand floating in the sky, opening doors in the sky, and he's fighting these two battles at the same time, it's confusing. So we're just going to split it up, and this is the only way to split it up. Like, the channelers have to fight the Trollocs, and the only channelers we have are women. And Rand is the dark one. Rand is the dragon. And that was a slip of the tongue.
Hold on, Jenny. Did you just? Oh my goodness! I trusted you for this long, and you did some mess like that.
It was the D, the dragon. That's all it was.
But you just said it like the way you said it. It just felt natural though. Like it felt. Oh man, just Randicking me. You can't go an episode without Randicking me at least once.
At least once, yes. That's exactly what it is. Rand is the dragon, so he has to be the one. And so I think that's what that is. And people look at it and they assume that because it's men and women, that they assume that there's a political reason that it happened. And I genuinely don't think that there is. But that's my opinion on that. So
I got you. I hear you. I don't know. I'll have to. And this is one of those things where I don't think I'll fully get the entire answer to this until after I finish the books and the show and see exactly what they do through and through.
Yeah.
I don't want to just gauge it off of one season. Obviously, there's some differences for various reasons. Whether that, I mean, at the tip of the iceberg, because of the pandemic that had happened, of course that throws a monkey wrench in a lot of things by itself. But yeah, no, I understand. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. And I do think some things just got updated. Like, I do think they had, we talked about that with Lan and Nynaeve, however you may feel about that. But like, even just Again, because I've been talking about these books with you so much,
Yeah,
this is what's in my brain. Like while I'm
gotcha.
cleaning, I'm thinking about, wonder what Adison thinks about blah blah blah. Anyway,
Hmm.
but like in the books, Lan and Nynaeve don't even kiss, and she proposes. Like, can you imagine? Like, we haven't even seen them hold hands. So they updated something like that in the show, with showing their relationship and showing like them have a night together. Well, it fades to black and they have a night together.
Yeah.
I do think that there is some stuff like that that is going to be updated just to make it more palatable for modern audiences.
Speaking about night together, I mean, they started us our first episode, and Rand and Egwene had a
Yeah,
night together.
exactly.
But
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
I'm not mistaken, that didn't happen at all in the book, did it?
Nope, not even at all. No,
Yeah. So
in the book, I don't feel like Rand and Egwene have any chemistry. Whereas in the show, I'm like, aw, you two, you're sweet.
no, for sure, not for sure. I don't feel like they got any closer throughout the entire book necessarily.
Mm,
I just think they understand a little bit more how difficult it may be to stay together, but they're not necessarily telling each other that.
yeah,
Um,
I think so.
that's the one thing I think I kind of realized. But yeah, no, that I from that standpoint, the scenes where a lot of people are kind of more intimate with one another
Mm,
in the series than they are in the book, I feel like that is definitely some type of modern approach to kind of get people
yeah,
tuned in for whatever reason, or
yeah, for whatever reason.
I know the reason,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah. The joke I always say about Rand and Egwene in book one is the only thing they do like a couple is fight. They don't do anything else that feels like a couple to me. Every
yeah,
time they fight, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I guess you're a couple. When they're not fighting, I'm like, I don't know. Do you even know each other? I can't tell.
yeah. Matter of fact, it was so funny because when they had the flashbacks at the last episode where
Mm,
Rand and Egwene seemingly had a happy, nice little life,
yeah,
it
yeah.
just felt like there's no way this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
This is the best version of a lie I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So another thing you had asked me about way back, I think in our first recording, there was
Okay.
a boy in book in like the first few chapters who talks a lot, and you were like, he's not
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah,
show,
yeah.
and I told you that there was something I wanted to tell you about him. So I am going to tell you about him now. Now I realize I didn't get the cover ready, and you don't have this cover. You do have a copy of the book. I know this. But you bought the anniversary edition that just has like that picture of Lan and Moraine on the cover.
What about my graphic novel that Kate got for me? Does that have it on there?
I might not. But if you have the original Daryl Sweet cover, there's actually, he's on the cover of the book. Because
Okay.
Robert Jordan originally planned to have him go with the crew, like go leave with them and go on the story. But I've told you his wife was his editor, and his wife at a certain point was like, what does this kid do? Like, what does he do? And Robert Jordan was like, I don't know. He has something that he'll do in like 7 books from now or blah, blah, blah. And his wife was like,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Just canceled that man's destiny like that.
His wife was like, well, he doesn't need to be in the book. So he just sort of wrote him out. But the cover had already been done by the time that it happened, because covers get done, it's like, before the final edit has done. So he's actually on the cover of the book. So that's who that kid is.
So you're telling me he doesn't have a future then, or you telling me you can't say anything about him?
I can't say anything about it, but I can tell you
Okay,
he's
okay.
not who, like, he was supposed to be on the road with them. Like, he was supposed to be with Matt and Rand on the road. So yeah, to be perfectly
understand.
frank, I don't remember. I don't remember if he shows up again.
Having a dark friend tag along might be a little bit bad.
Oh, you think he's a
I can
dark
see-
friend?
I
All
can
right.
Hey, the dark one said it. Somebody in y'all group might be a dark friend and you don't even know. So
Yeah.
I feel like the clearest indication would be Matt, but I mean, I don't know. Nah, I don't think. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Are there any, like, I don't know, I guess I want to ask, I might have asked this before, but it might have gotten lost in the edit. What were your favorite scenes, least favorite scenes, favorite changes, least favorite changes?
I kind of talked about this on the last one, but favorite scene in the book was Lan killing the Fade. Dang, never mind. I don't know if I can say. Well, I'll say one of my favorite. I don't want to say favorite. One of my favorite. Least favorite scene in the book. I'll say most weird, right? I'll say most weird. Moraine turning into Wilt Chamberlain, Bryant. Like, that's the weirdest one.
Yes.
Like, out of all the things she could have did, why does she do that?
Yeah. Yes. It is really
that was weird. It's like you could have zapped him with a rod or something, like stretching like Gumby. That's a different one right there.
Yeah, that scene it's how do I say this? It's even weirder when you go back and read it knowing more of the book. Like, it's just what? There's so many other things you could have done. You're right. Like, she could have I don't know, fire or like, I don't know, but she grew and then she stepped over the wall. It's so weird.
That was a weird one.
I'm glad it wasn't in the show personally. I know you said you wanted to see it, but it would have been so bizarre.
I wanted to see it because I wanted to see how corny it might look. So it was for a selfish reason. Like, I understand how it was described in the book. Visualize that for me though. You know what I'm saying? Let me get a visual on that.
Yeah.
And then also, one of the most jarring scenes in the show that was not in the book was Tom stabbing the dark friend.
Right.
That was one of those like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Goodness gracious.
Yes.
And that was not in the book at all. So
in the book, he throws knives and you see him kill, I think, Trollocs. So in the book, he does throw knives. So that is a skill that he has. But yeah, that scene was so good. That Dana storyline, that was the moment I went like, oh, this show got me. Like, I've read these books so many times, and the show got me with Dana, and so I was impressed by that. Well, okay, what was your favorite scene in the show?
Oh, you already know what that is.
It's the one?
You already know.
Good.
Nynaeve going supernova. Favorite, hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down. The Winter Dragon fight was pretty dope too, but the Nynaeve going supernova for sure was pretty dope.
Yeah, that was a great scene. That again, I loved it, even though it wasn't in the book at all. Like, that was just Nynaeve's my girl, so I really fully loved that. How about the changes with Logain? Because in the book, we don't really see him. Like, you sort of see him at a distance, and you hear his name a bunch of times. In the show, he's an actual character.
I feel like because they showed him so much in the show, he will have to have more of a role in the book moving forward.
Okay.
He'll have to have more of a, whether it's somehow he gets intertwined with the group. I could actually seeing him potentially fighting for the good side, whatever side that may be right now. I don't know. Especially since we see him get stripped of the powers. It'll also be interesting to see if someone who is stripped of the powers can get the powers back.
Oh.
Although it's kind of thought of that can happen. So we've definitely heard the fact that when men get stripped of the powers, they get so mad or so upset or ashamed, embarrassed, whatever. All those feelings that they get which drive them to suicide, which happened to Tom's nephew as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if somebody takes the different approach of they're so upset about it that they seek to get it back so much that they actually get it back.
Interesting. Okay.
Or they fight through it. So I definitely feel like Logain will be more pivotal, because another reason why, out of all of the people whose names, all those ancient dragons or false dragons, a lot of those people's names kept getting mentioned, and Logain's name was mentioned several times.
Yeah.
And he was one of the only active, still presiding, rejuvenated, false, ripped of his power, renovated dragons that was left. So with his name being brought up so much, almost sort of like his name was almost brought up in like a disdain reference. Like, it was like respect and disrespect at the same time. So
yeah.
Hopefully he can redeem himself.
Okay, that is interesting. That is interesting. I think the reason that the Dark One was bringing him up to Rand was as the tower is going to try and use you like Logain.
For sure.
Right? So
for sure.
Yeah. My theory on why they made him a bigger character, And now I'm getting nervous because I know Allie's in the chat, and Allie writes or works with
Shout out
scripts
Alexandra Shields.
Yeah, she works with scripts for a living, so I get nervous when I talk about scripts in front of Allie. But I think one of the reasons they brought him in was to show, like, whoever is the dragon, it's not necessarily a fate you want for a character you like. Because you see Logain, like, oh, that's what he wants, and it turns out really, really badly for him.
For sure.
So, yeah.
But then again, like, but my overall thoughts about him, though, I feel like the show was trying to make me not like him. But I was like, but what is he actually really do? I understand that he's fighting people, but everybody's coming at him trying to put him behind bars, put him in chains just because he has the power. So, and to be completely honest with you, the one interaction that he had that I saw on the show when he was encountering the guy on the castle top, whatever case may be, he was actually more merciful in that moment, giving the two dark entities, the dark consultants, as we like to call them, than I thought he actually may be. So it actually made me seem like, hold on, like, this guy might have a chance, but the women are on the side of gentle him and ask questions later. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? We're going to put you behind a cage, smack you around a little bit, zap you, get powers. Then we'll see how you feel. And then after that, we still don't care. So that's why it's kind of like, well, shoot, I understand why he's on his own path right now. So
yeah. So I'm laughing. Okay, you call them the dark consultants. There's no way you would know this, but in the fandom, people refer to them as the taint puppets.
The taint puppets.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. Who has the strings though?
The dark one. That's like that. It is a thing.
Dark one got destroyed, Jenny. What you talking about? Dark one not holding the strings no more.
Well, at that point he did. At that point,
you know, I gotta somewhat try to get you to slip up every once in a while.
You're trying real hard. I know. So,
those are just strings I know Randall never holds, so I feel you.
You are fishing so much. This fish is dodging your hook so much. Okay, so that is the end of part 1 of episode 9. Part 2, as always, is over on the Everyday Negroes channel. It's linked in the description below. Or you can go to the playlist, which is also linked in the description below, and find it there. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video. And like I said, head on over to Everyday Negroes now and watch part 2. Bye.